Hey friends, we gathered a lot of questions about one of the best builds in the game. This is the Spin2Win Barbarian, and I've gotten so many questions like how do I keep up my fury, why do I not explode my earthquakes, and so many more. And in this video, we're gonna go into them all. You can follow along with the FAQ in an Excel sheet, and obviously we also have all the planners here, and we're gonna explain as we go by also looking at the in-game stuff. But yeah, let's get started here. So by far the most question that I've gotten here from you guys is how to keep up Fury. And what you want to know probably is that there's multiple sources of Fury. The first source is obviously very simple. If you read your Groundstorm, you get 60 Fury whenever you Groundstorm. So if you ever run out of Fury and you have your Groundstorm cooldown ready, you just press Groundstorm, boom, your Fury rolls goes back full. Then the next source that I use at the moment, especially during speedruns, again, this entire video is mostly focused on speedruns, is Fury on kill. You can get this on your two-handed mace and or on your polearm. So whenever you kill an enemy, you get 6 Fury. There's also a Paragon node here in the Weapons Master board, Hunter Killer, that also gives you 2 or even 4 Fury if you meet the dex requirements here. So you can also use that one to generate Fury on kill of the enemies. Next thing you can do is use the Wrath Glyph. So in this Paragon board here, you can either use Exploit if you need to solve Vulnerable, but if you already have this solved, you can use Wrath. Just slot it in here, boom, it's an easy switch. And now you get 3 Fury per critical strike, and we have 100% crit chance here whenever we move around, like because we use the Buck rune together with the Gar rune. So you see my normal crit is 77. And when I move a bit, it goes up. And it's going to go up to like 100%. Once I trigger this completely, boom. See, now our crit is 100%. And now we get a ton of Fury. Whenever we attack, see, my Fury just goes up. And we just attack, and my Fury just sustains automatically. And this also helps you because your Whirlwind also generates your Fury if you hit. So this is like a very good trick, especially early on, if you still need to generate Fury. Then there is another source of Fury here. It's in general Resource Generation and Rallying Cry / Prolific Fury. So you noticed here I have Harlequin's Crest in my speed setup because it gives you big cooldown. And I have Perma Rallying Cry. You see, I press this. It has 4 seconds cooldown. It has 6 seconds duration. And I can just keep pressing this. And it's going to be always active, you see. This is achieved by using Bolt's Chieftain together with Harlequin's Crest. So you see, it's permanently up. And this is going to generate me even more Fury. Like as when I start spinning, look at my Fury. It goes instantly up. I don't even... And then if I even can walk around here without Fury and then go in here again, press Rallying Cry, and my Fury goes up again. So this is basically how you sustain your Fury. And what I'm doing here, you don't want to do. You want to tap your Whirlwind, but more on that later. You don't want to hold it. That's showcase. And then there is supposed to be another resource source, another Fury source, but this one is currently bugged. So your Call of the Ancients, you see here Qualic, and last patch this was still working. It's supposed to generate Fury for you, but it doesn't work because Blizzard, like, it's bugged or something, right? Like you press it, you see my Fury doesn't go up. It should go up immediately because whenever Qualic attacks, he should give me 10 Fury, but this is bugged right now. So this doesn't work, and this is why so many of you struggle with Fury. I also didn't notice this until a few days ago. But yeah, this is a big bug. I hope that Blizzard fixes it. I reported it. But yeah, this is why many of you struggle right now, why we need to resort into other measures, especially early on. If you don't have crazy gear, then this helps you a lot. Or this hurts you a lot to not get the Fury from this one here. And then another way, obviously, to not spend as many resources is if you have Starless Sky. Because this one gives you like a stacking buff that basically allows you to spend way less resources, you see, with the Starless Sky. But even without Starless Sky, I can definitely like maintain my resources, like just spinning here and using my cooldowns. And even if I were to run out, you know, if I don't hit monsters, I can still use Ground Stomp, you know, to keep spinning around. So my Fury doesn't even go out, you know, even without the Starless Sky equipped. But yeah, that's basically the main question that people have. Next is, Rob, how do we spawn earthquakes with Whirlwind? So, the way we spawn the earthquakes is the tech rune. This only works if you own Vessel of Hatred expansion. It does not work if you only have the base game. The runes are expansion only. So this build, unfortunately, revolves around this tech rune, which gives you tremendous damage and also procs your earthquake. So what Igni does, whenever we cast any skill that's not a basic skill, which is basically any of our skills, like Whirlwind, for example, like I just cast my Whirlwind, boom, it procs Earthquakes, right? And I can just walk here, and then I press my Whirlwind, boom, it procs an Earthquake again. I can also just cast my Shout. You see, I walk around, I cast my Shout, it procs an Earthquake. I walk around, I cast my other Shout, it procs an Earthquake. I walk around, I press my Shout, procs an Earthquake. That's basically how we proc the Earthquakes, right? And what you need to and want to do is proc this Earthquake as many times as possible. For that, you need to perform a new action every time. So when I press my Shout and hold it, it does not spawn any Earthquakes. You see this here? Does not spawn any Earthquakes. What you want to do is you want to tap your Whirlwind, because you want to perform a new action every 0.3 seconds, because that's the internal cooldown of this Igni rune. So you walk, you press Earthquake. You walk, you press your Whirlwind. So you walk around, Whirlwind, walk around, Whirlwind. Or just tap it, right? And you see when I tap it, it keeps proccing Earthquakes everywhere. Contrary to when I just hold it, it doesn't proc any Earthquakes. So right, you want to always tap, 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 tap every 0.3 seconds. Like you get in the rhythm, like how far you can move and stuff. So that's how you deal the most DPS. And then I get asked a lot, Rob, I don't have the Igni rune, it's a legendary rune, it can be pretty rare. So if you don't have Igni, you can still use the Buck rune. The Buck rune basically just gonna proc your Earthquake when you walk. So you don't have Igni, you can play Buck. But Buck is also a legendary. If you don't have the Buck rune, there are still two alternatives. Either you play the Pock rune, which is basically you spend resources, right? So you can play Pock. This is when you spend resources and you're whirlwinding. So if you don't have Starless yet, the Pock is pretty good because you spend a lot of resources and you trigger the Pock rune. Alternatively, you can also play Lunging Strike with Moni rune. And then you would not play Whirlwind. This is like early on, I can recommend this. The Moni rune just needs you to cast 2 mobility skills to get 100 offering. And Lunging Strike is a mobility skill, you can see here. So you just 2 times Lunging Strike, and then it's going to proc your Earthquake. So that's pretty cool. So you can replace Whirlwind with Lunging Strike early on and just use the Moni rune together with Tech, and this also helps you out a lot. So that's basically how we spawn the Earthquakes. Then, next question I get asked a lot, how do you sustain cooldowns? How do you have permanent Call of the Ancients? So the easiest way to get that is the Ariad's Bearing. You see this one alone, like even if you don't have Shaco, my base cooldown is 38 seconds. And if I equip this, my cooldown is only 9 seconds. So just baseline, this already gives us like 80% cooldown. And then if you combine it with a Shaco or even with like a cooldown roll on the Helm like a Godslayer, you will have the max cooldown on your Call of the Ancients, 8.5 seconds. And this allows us to, you know, have it permanently up. You see, I can just Call of the Ancients, then I use my Shouts. And it's just going to continue like this forever, and it's never going to run out. See, it just like, this is thanks to the Marshall Glyph as well. So we'll always have this, and it's just always going to keep going. Alternatively, you can also play Wrath of the Berserk if you like. And if Call of the Ancients would work normally, this would solve all your Fury issues. We just have to do a lot of other stuff to make it work right now. But yeah, you see we have no cooldown whatsoever. And it just keeps proccing. You can see the full setup in the planner, guys, because this is like, thanks to my Boss Chieftain, thanks to my Harlequins, thanks to my Ariad's Bearing. But even if you don't have a crazy roll here, let's say you don't have a great Harfix like me, you just have like, I don't know, like a normal one here, like this one. But even if I use this one, like completely unupgraded, literally min roll, I still have like 13 seconds, and then there is rings that you can use that have Call of the Ancients cooldown, like this one here. You see, this one has 28, you just don't need the brawling necessarily. So if I equip this one, it goes down from 13, it goes down all the way to 9 seconds. And even with this, so I just have normal pants now, and I equipped one ring that I didn't even masterwork. And look now, my cooldown is still permanent. So it still will work even if you have like some shitty pants and stuff. And you will maintain this permanently and you get all the bonuses. So it's pretty chill. Oh my god, okay, I didn't want to like switch all this. There you go. And the same goes for the cooldown sustain on your Shouts. You just want the Bold Chieftain. This one is solving like 70% of your cooldown issue. And then either you have the God Slayer with cooldown, or you have the Harlequin's Quest that's even better with cooldown. Okay, next one here is how to cap resistance. How to cap your armor. And with that, also your Ariad's Bearing helps a lot. So you notice here, like even a base roll here already gives you 50 all res. And you can masterwork this one early on if you are struggling with resistances. It can go up all the way to like almost 100 res on this Ariad's Bearing. If you don't have greater affix, you can still get up to like 60 all res just on these pants alone. And then you either have Starless Sky or you have normal rings plus the season gems in your jewelry that gives you even more res. Then you use the Paragon. Like in the Paragon, there's also some res nodes here. I didn't even populate them all because I didn't need them. But you can like get the dex requirement here if needed, like just spec into some decks. And like down here some decks, and you can spec some more decks if you really need this res. But I already have overcap, and you can also put 2 more points here to get this res as well. And it's gonna like max your res unbuffed even. And then what you can do, you see I'm max res, and I don't even have the resistance masterworked, and I don't have any soothing spice. Like if I were to use the soothing spice, you see now I'm already like 8 res over cap basically. And again, I didn't choose any of the res in my Paragon node, right? Like you can still like choose this res, get this requirement here, like just skill a bit of dex. There's always some stuff you can swap around to just get a bit more dex. For example here, right? Like it's very easy for me to get a bit more dex here, like this. And then the dex node would already almost be up, and now I would need to get another like 5 dex or something. So you can like experiment around like this a little bit and just get yourself some extra dex nodes here. I'm looking real quick. There's definitely going to be, you know, some ways to improve dexterity count. By just here, for example, here I can give up strength for dex if I want to, right? And there's going to be multiple occasions like this where you can just get a bit of dex. But again, I don't need this rest, so I don't even need this requirement. But you might need it. That's basically how you get your resistance up. And soothing spices are really good. Same for the armor. Like if you're using the Mantle of the Mountain's Fury, this one gives you 700 armor. And you also get a ton more armor from your main stat, from your strength that you are stacking anyways here. So if you're having a Harlequins, but even without Harlequins, you see I have way over armor cap, and we are in Torment 4. So armor cap here with the Mantle of the Mountain's Fury. Obviously, I didn't even want to masterwork. This is just the last hit. You want to triple crit the Earthquakes. But you solve your armor problems with the chest, and then, I mean, if you have the Shaco, you have way overkill, but you have overkill anyway. So just get the Mantle of the Mountain's Fury, and then get the season gems, and your armor will be kept easily. And then you don't even have to spend. You see here, like in my Paragons, I didn't take, like all the armor nodes I could skip. I skipped, basically. Right, like so. You can just skip them. And I just noticed, actually, like for example here, there seems to be a bit of an improvement we can do by just doing this. Gonna save us 1 point that we can use to spec some more decks, I guess. That's pretty cool. So see, there's still like, you know, little things that you can min-max here and there. I'll spend that point later. That's basically how it looks. Next question that I get a lot here is the Occult Gem Priority. So you want to use, you want to craft, I noted down here as well. The Fiend of the Bug, this one gives you the main stats. And the main stat is so good because it's scaling twice. Once it's scaling with your like baseline here. You see I get 500% skill damage. And then it's also scaling with your Executioner of Earthquake aspect here. I get 800%. So this is really important to get the main stat scaling. So Fiend of the Bog, definitely your first choice. The next one here, I like Dust Zone because it gives you damage. If you're playing hardcore, or if you're feeling squishy or something, you can also go Moonlight Ward first. However, I would go Moonlight Ward last. So Fiend of the Bog first, Dust Stone second, Moonlight Ward third. Weapon choices. So why we choose the Weapon Master Paragon Ward. This is like also one of the top questions because people are getting confused by this node. So if you read this legendary node, swapping weapons grants 8% fury, you deal 30% increased damage to injured and healthy enemies. So what you do, you just completely ignore the first sentence. You're not swapping weapons in this build. You don't have to swap weapons. We only take this Weapons Master because it gives us 30% multiplicative damage to injured and to healthy targets. That's it. No swapping weapons. Very simple. It's very similar to the Blood Rage board, so I'm not quite sure why people are getting so confused about this, because here we are not using this because we are using bleeds. No, no, no. We're only using Blood Rage because of the second sentence. Multiplicative damage. Don't care about the bleed or the berserking. Right? So same principle applies here. Then I'm getting a lot of questions. Polearm versus sword. So you notice here on my Whirlwind, when I spin, I have my polearm here. I'm using like a trident, which is like, you know, like a little bit of Aquaman style. Like, I think it looks pretty cool. You can assign this by S and then right-clicking. But what you want to do is you want to use the polearm. So there's two reasons for this. First of all, you have the polearm expertise, which is the highest multiplier in the game in terms of expertise. It gives you 15x increased damage when you're healthy. And you're going to be always healthy. So this is already a major W over the mace alternative, because the mace, it gives you a 15% X crit damage while berserking. So these are like somewhat similar, but you also get the slash bleeding multiplier, or the effect from Whirlwind. So you need to use a slashing weapon for Whirlwind to inflict bleed. You see here like this, the enemies starts bleeding. Obviously there's a ton of thousands effects, but you're gonna use this for bleed. And then I'm getting asked a lot, like, Rob, can I use the Grandfather, or can I use like a normal two-handed sword? And you see here, your Earthquake is not scaling with attack speed. You see a sword has 1.0 attacks per second, while a polearm has 0.9. So the average damage of the polearm, you see here, 530 to 794, is much higher than on the sword, which is 477 to 700. So you definitely want to be using a polearm, because it's just going to increase your damage. And vulnerable and crit have the same value anyways. We're going to talk more about that in the stat priority section. But yeah, just use a polearm. It also looks super cool, and I like it a lot. Yeah, why no Grandfather? Because we have the Heavy Hitter passive. You notice here on my polearm, we have 10 ranks to Heavy Hitter. And what this does is, if you go to your skill tree, Heavy Hitter gives you 15% multiplicative X damage per point. So if I were to remove this, or I were to equip a Grandfather, I would lose a big multiplier here. Plus we would also lose one of the aspects, and the Earthquake aspects also give you double damage. Plus you would also lose the Berserking, which is a multiplicative scaler for you. So you do not want to use Grandfather in this build, guys. It's not really an option. Obviously, if you find it like very early on, you can play it. However, I do not recommend you playing with a Grandfather. It just simply has less DPS, and you're gonna lose like a ton of stats, and you're gonna lose the Heavy Hitter, and you're gonna lose the aspect. And this build has many good aspects, so Grandfather not an alternative. The same goes for Doombringer. I mean, if you play hardcore, yes, you can play it, but in softcore, it is definitely not recommended to play. I have this one here with life. But you don't really scale with Overpower, so the life percent isn't that great. You don't have Overpower in this build, and you're not benefiting from this, and you're only getting toughness, which you don't really need if you're playing softcore, because this build's already extremely tanky, and you want DPS. Big damage. Same goes for Turiel's Might. It's a nice chest for defense. It's a nice chest if you want to play hardcore or something. But we play the Mantle of the Mountain's Fury, and this one gives us here 55. You can get up to 60% chance to double your damage. So no to those. What you can use, however, is the Shroud of False Death. If you don't have a Mantle of the Mountain's Fury for some reason, you can still use the Shroud of False Death. It will also give you 1 to Heavy Hitter. It's going to give you 1 to like a bunch of other passives. And it's going to be pretty decent overall, because you get all these passives and it's still going to give you damage. However, Mantle of the Mountain's Fury in the end is still more DPS, because that 60% chance to double your Earthquakes. Next question I get a lot here is, why are you playing Fist of Fate? And Fist of Fate here has some pretty cool benefits. First of all, it has high crit. I really like that. You can masterwork it. You can like solve most of your crit with the Fist of Fate. Then it also gives you one of the highest multipliers in the entire game, 300% X. However, if you average this out, it's only going to come down to 50% increased damage. But this is still much better than most of the other passives. For example, I'm using here the Vehement Brawlers, which only gives me 30% X. So this one is already outscaling the Vehement Brawler for speedruns. And I also like it because it applies crowd control and it has high lucky hit. And this allows us on our boots here to run the concussive strikes with daze. It also works based on lucky hit, and you have double the chance to daze basically. And this also gives you another 25x in the speed runs here for farming. So I like this combination quite a lot. The attack speed on Fist of Fate doesn't matter. We don't really scale with Fist of Fate. Next thing here is the Helm Choice. So I'm using Harlequin's Quest because this is a speed setup. In Diablo's 4th endgame right now, the only thing that really matters is how fast can you clear. There's not really an incentive to do any, like high pits because there's no rewards. There's no extra gem ups. There's no leaderboard. There's no extra loot. There's only like a very slight XP increase. So there's like practically, and this is a big critique point of the game in general right now, there's basically no big reason to, or no incentive to even do any high pits. And the most efficient way to just like boost your character and get strong and enjoy the game is like you do like speed run. Like you have like a speed setup that can basically like do pits, high pits very fast. This allows you, to quickly upgrade all your altar powers. You see here, I've been running a ton of pits. I already maxed my Piranado. I already maxed my Aura specialization. I'm still maxing my X specialization. Like the speedrun is in crazy. You also get a ton of aspects if you're running high pits because you get if you're running fast pits because you're getting so many aspects. It's also the best way to get Marbling Orbs. It's the best way to get Paragon XP, and it's also the best way to get like your triple or even quadruple greater affixes. Like this one here, for example, dropped in the pits for me. And most of my gear just dropped in the pits because like we're just doing them in like 60 to 90 seconds. And this is like basically the most efficient way to like boost your character power is do pits because you get so much out of it basically. And hence we focus on speeds. And the Harlequin's Crest is really great for that because it basically just allows you to have all this cooldown. Like cooldown and speed is key. You don't really need damage all too much. You just need speed, speed, speed. And cooldown reduction is insane for this because it allows you to perma-shout. You can run around all the time. You have everything permanently up. It's like huge quality of life. If you don't have a Shaco yet, you can still play the Godslayer Crown. And this is a very similar benefit because it's here in the non-Uber setup. The Godslayer Crown with cooldown masterwork. It pulls in all the enemies. It also gives you a nice DPS multiplier. So this works very well early on. Then you transition into Shaco. And then if you want a very late game, like if you want to do like high pits for some reason, then there is the Ugly Bastard Helm, which can give you up to double damage. And obviously, the Shaco doesn't give you double damage. So Ugly Bastard, if you like really care about like pure damage and not care about speed, you go for Ugly Bastard. It's pretty insane. So those are the 3 Helm choices. Godslayer early on, Shaco for speeds, and Ugly Bastard for high pit. Then there are a lot of bugs with the build that we're going to get into here real quick. So the first and probably the most important one in general for almost every build of the entire season is the Soul Harvest Snapshot. So most people, and this is one of the strongest witch powers in the entire game right now, is Soul Harvest. It gives you more primary stats per surrounding enemy. However, what happens, this power snapshots, and you really want to use it the first time when there's a lot of enemies around. You can see here, maybe I'll even get a stack. I don't know how close I can get. Yeah, see, I get 2 stacks here. So my primary stat is based on these 2 stacks now. You see, I get 5,400. However, if I get more stacks now, my primary stat does not go up. So it's a negative snapshot. Like, this number down here changes, but the actual primary stat that you get does not go up. You see here, I hit 2 enemies initially and I got 5,400. But now I need to do is drop this buff again. And we need to wait 10 seconds before it drops because it does not refresh. So basically what happens is you need to do your first trigger of Soul Harvest, like cast a skill with a cooldown, when you have a lot of enemies around. You see, now we're going to get way more than 5.4 because we're going to do it like right in the middle. And you see now we got 550, almost 100 more. And obviously this scales like crazy the more monsters you have. I'm probably going to do a dedicated video on this because this is important for every character and every player to know. Because this is like a big bug, this snapshot, and it affects you negatively. So, TLDR again, cast and activate your Soul Harvest only when you have a lot of enemies around for the first time. After that, you can just keep spamming it because then the snapshot will work in your favor. Next thing, we have aggressive resistance tooltip. So there is a bug right now, and you might have noticed this, where you put more points into aggressive resistance, the damage reduction does not go up. So some people were saying this is only a tooltip issue. I have not tested this myself. I'm just like not putting any points into aggressive resistance until Blizzard fixes this bug, because it's just like, I'm not sure, like it's just stupid, like these kind of bugs. Like I really hope they were gonna be fixed immediately. But like you can have basically like 10 ranks and still only get a 4% damage reduction here on the tooltip. Then next we have the Mantle of the Mountain's Fury. So there was one bug that's already fixed, right? In the beginning, Mantle of the Mountain's Fury did not even give you explosion damage at all. Like this is the visual explosion that you get. And now the explosion actually deals damage. However, the explosion from the Mantle of the Mountain's Fury, if you use the Hoda and the unique effect, is still bugged. It's bugged in the sense as the earthquake that you have here on the ground, and when you explode it, it only deals about half the damage. The explosion deals only about half the damage of the earthquake's total damage. So if you were to let the earthquake run out, it would deal way more damage than if you were to explode it. So there's some multipliers that are not correctly functioning. There's a problem in the math formula. There are a lot of multipliers that are not correctly functioning with the Mantle of the Mountain's Fury. So I say, if you're doing speedruns or in most content, maybe with the exception of very high pit pushing, like if you want to push 150, it's different. But for 99% of you, it is not worth it. I repeat, not worth it to ever explode your earthquakes. You just don't want to do it because it's a DPS loss. So just keep proccing the earthquakes and keep going like this. It's going to do more damage than if you explode them. This is a sad bug. I think Blizzard is aware. I hope they fix it. Because that's definitely not what... that's very confusing for people, and it's very misleading of why we still use this chest. But however, this chest is still very strong because it still has this chance to double your earthquakes. There is another bug. There is a temper on your weapon that basically allows your earthquakes to have a higher duration. And the explosion also does not scale with higher duration. That's the second or third bug, if you will. And then I'm getting asked a lot of questions if it's worth it to stack more than 100% chance for earthquakes to cast twice. It's not. You can only have a guaranteed chance for your earthquakes to cast twice. If you have like 120% chance for your earthquakes to cast twice, you're not going to get 3 earthquakes or something. Like you only get 2, so only stack this up to 100%. I even have like 8% overkill right now. But that's just okay. Like in the end, you want to triple crit the chance here and get like 90% and then run heavy hitter here as well. The planner already has this reflected. But yeah, in conclusion, guys, don't explode your earthquakes. The damage, it's a damage loss in most situations. However, it's still the best to use the Mountain's Fury chest because it still gives you the double damage. One alternative, if you don't want to do it, is a Shroud. Phew, okay, next one here. Can I play this build without Vessel of Hatred expansion? I already explained this. You need the tech rune to play this build. If you don't have access to the tech rune, and unfortunately, if you don't have Vessel of Hatred, you don't have runes, you don't have rune words. So this build is only for Vessel of Hatred players. I hope they change this in the future, but however, at the moment, it is what it is, my friends. Next thing here is, why do your in-game items do not always match your planner? I've gotten this, and you might be surprised, I've gotten this comment a lot here on YouTube, and the reason is my items are not perfect yet. The planner always shows you the gear to strive for. It always shows you, the perfect gear in the different stages, right? Like here, it shows you the perfect gear if you don't have any Ubers. And here, it shows you the perfect gear if you actually have Ubers. However, let's take the amulet, for example. I have the perfect amulet, has strength %, counter-offensive, and heavy-handed. However, guys, I cannot, just create this item. I need to farm it. And my current amulet happened to roll Pit Fighter. So, I mean, it's a bit crazy I have to explain this, but, I'm going to explain it. Like, I don't have perfect gear, and I have Pit Fighter, not because it's the best. I have Pit Fighter because this is the amulet that I've found. I would have liked this amulet to have heavy-handed. But it doesn't have it because it's just how it rolled, man. Like, if I had an amulet that had heavy-handed instead of Pit Fighter, I would use it. But I don't have it, guys. Right? And this is the case for most of the gear and all my planners. My planner will always have the best in slot gear at the different stages. I have a low Paragon variant with no Ubers and stuff like that. But still, it has the best rolls. Because, I mean, like, it's an individual situation for everybody. Obviously, you're not going to have perfect gear. You don't need it. But I feel it has value to show, you know, the gear to hunt and the perfect gear in the planner. Because else it's freaking misleading. If I put Pit Fighter because I have Pit Fighter in the planner, that is just misleading because it's not the best. But however, it's the amulet I have. And we're only 5 days into the season. I'm sure going forward, at some point, I will find the perfect amulet. Maybe, if I'm lucky. But I don't have it right now. So please stop asking. Next one here is Playstyle with Igni. We already covered this. Like, you basically want to make sure that you tap your Whirlwind. You don't hold it. If you hold it, you do not spawn any Earthquakes. You want to tap it, tap it, tap it. And then you spawn a ton of Earthquakes. Next one here I'm getting asked a lot is how to trigger Overpower. This build does not really trigger or use any Overpower. Your Earthquakes can't Overpower anyways. However, there is one thing that people get confused about, and I totally get it. It's the Decimator Paragonaut. So you do 20% X against vulnerable and 20% X against overpowering a vulnerable enemy. So we always make the enemies vulnerable, but we do not always get the overpower bonus. So there's still a 3% base chance at the moment to trigger your overpower, 3%, like you just attack, and you attack very fast. And there's a 3% chance to overpower, but that's the only source of overpower in this variant of the speed farm build. Because I don't feel it's worth it in speed farming to, I don't know, do something to overpower a lot. You also don't need any overpowers to spawn extra Earthquakes, because these Earthquakes from your overpower only do 3000 damage. They are super weak if you compare it to some of the other Earthquakes, especially the Tech Rune one, which is like, I think, like at least like 3 times that or something. So you don't really need to, or you don't really rely on spawning Earthquakes with your overpowers. You just spawn them with your Whirlwind, and you spawn a ton. You spawn a ton of them. So you don't really need to focus on overpower in the speed variant. In the push variant, that I also added here, you use overpower with Hoda and with Bash, but this is not for speeds, guys. This is just like for, like, if you want to push 150 pit. But it's not really relevant to 99% of people anyways, because there's no reward to do that. The next question here I get a lot is how to make enemies vulnerable. So there's a few different sources you can use. So first of all, if you don't use Wrath, this has been historically the simplest way to make enemies vulnerable in speedruns is the exploit glyph. However, if you have Fury issues and you use Wrath and even a baseline, there are a lot of other options. So the best option here is you also have Ground Stomp. And the Ground Stomp upgrade, like whenever you press your Ground Stomp, it makes the enemy vulnerable for 4 seconds. And this one also triggers Berserking. So you press Ground Stomp, it triggers, it stuns the enemy, it creates, let's count, it creates 1 Earthquake per Ground Stomp. But then you have double the chance to spawn Earthquakes. So Ground Stomp gives you 2 Earthquakes. And then you also have the Igni rune that will also trigger on your first Ground Stomp. And that's doubled as well. So you're going to proc 4 Earthquakes. I Ground Stomp. There's going to be 4 Earthquakes right here. So just 1 Ground Stomp will trigger Igni rune. And it will trigger the base Ground Stomp. So you just do it once. Boom. There are 4 Earthquakes. And the enemies already take, you know, a crazy amount of damage. As you can see. So that's really strong. And it also stuns the enemy. Makes everything vulnerable. And gives you Berserking. So that's by far the best. And if you want to reset the Ground Stomp cooldown, you just press your shouts. Boom. Reset. Ground Stomp. Boom. Ground Stomp. Boom. Ground Stomp. You in theory, you don't even have to Whirlwind if you don't want to. So yeah, I just did, whenever I play, I just use Ground Stomp. Whenever I see a pack, I Ground Stomp once and then I leave. And I know there's 4 Earthquakes on the pack and the pack's gonna die and it's stunned. It's gonna stay in the Earthquakes. It can't even run away. It's vulnerable. It gives him Berserking. Like just Ground Stomp is insane on every elite if you want to. Pretty good. And then there's also another way to trigger vulnerable is with one of the witch powers here. I forgot which one it was. Let me actually go in the planner. I wish there was like a search function on the witch powers. Here, the Shaken Soul. So if you use an edging effect, you can also apply a vulnerable for 10 seconds if you like. This is also an option to use Shaken Soul, but then you need to use an edge power. So I don't really like to do that too much. I just like to play Exploit, because that's like vulnerable soft, and on the boss you just Ground Stomp, and on elites. Then what I get asked a lot here as well is, and this also goes to the planner sometimes, having vulnerable or crit. You'll see, I have one weapon here with crit damage rolls, and the other weapon here with vulnerable, perfect roll. And the answer is, it's both additive, like vulnerable damage and crit damage. Choose whichever one you like, because assuming 100% uptime, they are the same. They are just additive to the base. So I have 100% crit chance, so my crit damage value has 100% value basically. You see here, when I move around enough, I'm going to get 100% crit chance. So we're going to benefit fully from the crit damage. But I also have almost 100% vulnerable. So it's basically the same for me. You can make your choice, like if you like crit damage better, if you think it's better for some reason, then go crit damage or go vulnerable. But in the end, you can just take whichever one you want because they both have the same value, assuming 100% uptime. Then we have the chance to cast Earthquakes against Heavy Hitter. So in the speed setup, I really like to have 100% chance to Earthquake because it's all about how much, you know, AoE you cover, and with double Earthquake on every attack, it's better. However, in the push scenario, you want to use one more Heavy Hitter roll. So you're going to have double Heavy Hitter on both weapons and one Heavy Hitter here, and then only one chance to spawn Earthquakes. And ideally, you want to triple crit it. However, I don't have this, and I don't really like mind that much about doing like, you know, 150. So I'm just going to like do with both of the chance to spawn Earthquakes twice. And you cannot get more than 100% like we said earlier. Then one of the last questions here, what mythics to craft first? I like to craft the Starless Sky first, because this one basically helps you with the Fury, and this is definitely my recommendation. Like, you always go Starless Sky first, and then you would go for a Harlequin's Crest second if you can choose. But yeah, Starless Sky is the most important. It also gives you 50% damage, which is insane. Then the last question here, which elixirs or pre-buffs do you use, Rob? So we have crazy strength scaling, so we're using Ancient Times for strength, we're using Soothing Spice for max res and all res, and we're using Rediment Boost. There's unfortunately not really a good alternative here for life. And then we use the Crit Chance Elixir. This is just the best value for the moment because we don't scale with attack speed, we don't scale with max fury, we don't overpower. You can also use life if you feel like you're struggling with surviving, and we don't use armor. So it's either Elixir of Precision or Elixir of Fortitude. Right now, I even have too much crit chance, so at some point, I'm probably going to drop the Gar rune here, and maybe we'll take like Om rune or Jar rune, just for some more mobility and for some teleporting. But yeah, that's pretty much the FAQ, guys. Again, you can follow along the written version, and there's also all the different Paragon versions here. All the different planners, I'm also going to link those below. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the FAQ. If you have any more questions, we might make a follow-up. Just post below in the comments like how you like the video, and also if you have more questions, I'll do my best to answer them in the comments. But if there is like a tremendous amount of questions, then we can also make a follow-up video on this. I hope you guys learned something. I hope you guys enjoyed the Spin2Win Barb. I certainly do. It's one of my favorite playstyles. I really like it. And yeah, good luck. Hope you stayed a while and you listened and you learned something. And yeah, enjoy the Spin2Win. I'll see you soon. GG. If you liked this video, make sure to subscribe, leave a like or a comment. I'm also live on Twitch almost every day, so come and say hi.